Hi, I would like to start teaching Tanya. We're going to start Chapter 1. The Sefer Tanya was written by the Baal HaTanya, the first rabbi of Chabad. The Sefer is a very classic Jewish book for chassidim and especially for Chabad chassidim. So we're going to start now. I'll teach it in English, so it would be easy for those who only know English to be able to follow along. It has been taught in Masechtas Nida in the end of chapter 3 that an oath is administered to him before birth, warning him, be righteous and be not wicked. Before a person is born, the Gemara says in Masechtas Nida, the angels make an oath with him and they tell the soul, you're going to go now down to this world, is remembered to be righteous and be not wicked. And even if the whole world tells you that you are righteous, regard yourself as if you are wicked. So even if people tell you are righteous, don't consider yourself righteous, consider yourself wicked. It's a little hard to understand, and the Baal HaTanya is going to ask the first question. The answer to this question is going to be more discussed, it's going to be discussed later in chapter 13, on what does it mean that someone's supposed to consider themselves wicked. So I'm now, what the statement that I said in English, I'm going to now say it in Hebrew and translate it. So if you want to get more acquainted with the Hebrew part, you'll understand. Perik Aleph, first chapter, the Baal HaTanya starts like this. Tanya, we learned, Sof Perik Gimel the Nida, end of chapter Gimel of Masechtas Nida. It says, when a soul comes down to this world, Mashpia Noisoi, we make an oath with the soul, and we tell it to, hey, tzaddik, be a tzaddik, v'al tehi rusha, and do not be a rusha. Be a righteous person, and do not be a wicked person. V'afile, even, kol ha'olam kila, even if the whole world, amrim, l'chu, tell you, tzaddik atu, you're a righteous person, hoya b'neichu kirusha, be in your eyes like a wicked person. Okay? Now we have to understand, the Baal HaTanya says further, how could someone think that they're a wicked person? We're not supposed to think that way, because we're going to see why. This requires to be understood, for it contradicts the Mishnaic dictum. Because it says in the Mishnah, in Masechtas Avot, chapter 2, it says, and be not wicked in your own estimation, that a person shouldn't think he's wicked. So the question is, the Baal HaTanya is going to ask three questions. Question number one, what does it mean, and be not wicked in your own estimation? In Navos it says, be not wicked in your own estimation. And Masechtas Nida it says that you tell the soul he should be righteous and not wicked, and even if everyone tells him he's righteous, he should still regard himself as wicked. So I don't get it. Should he regard himself as wicked or not? Furthermore, this is the second question, if a person considers himself to be wicked, he will be grieved at heart and depressed and will not be able to serve God joyfully and with a content heart. Problem number two is, if someone considers himself wicked, he'll be upset and depressed and will not be able to serve God joyfully. And we know this week in Pashas Bechikosai, in the Tochacha, where God says that Jews will be punished if they do not follow the Torah, it says, because you did not serve God in joy, while you were joyful and with a glad heart. So we see there's a requirement to serve God with a joyful heart. And even as we say every day in Mizmor L'Sod, it's a verse from Tehillim. It says, if Dias Hashem b'simcha, serve God with joy. So he's supposed to be joyful. So someone thinks he's a Rosh, he would be depressed. So that's the second question the Baal HaTanya has on the Gemara Masechtas Nida, that someone's supposed to consider himself wicked. And the Baal HaTanya goes a step further. So this is part 2 of question 2. If someone considers himself to be wicked and he doesn't get depressed from it, then there's a problem. While if he is not disturbed by this self-appraisal, it may lead him to irrelevance, God forbid. So if he doesn't get depressed and he doesn't care that he considers himself a Rasha, then he might not even care to do mitzvahs. However, the matter will be understood after a preliminary discussion. So now the Baal HaTanya is going to go in to understand the meaning of what it means to be a righteous person, a wicked person, and an intermediate person. And because usually we understand it to mean a righteous person means someone who does more mitzvahs, commandments. A wicked person means someone who does less, fulfills less commandments and does more discretions, averis. And an intermediate person means someone who's 50% mitzvahs, 50% averis. But the Baal HaTanya is going to explain that that's not the literal meaning. That's just a borrowed meaning of the term righteous person, wicked person, intermediate person. The real meaning is, as we're going to see, and this is going to be the first part of the book of Tanya, a lot of it, is that a righteous person means, I'm going to give you overall meaning, we're going to go later more in depth, that a righteous person means someone who doesn't even have a desire to do evil. An evil person means he even crushed his desire to do good and he has evil desires. An intermediate person means that he has both desire to do good by his godly soul, we're going to discuss that in a minute, and desire to do evil by his animalistic soul. And together, they keep on fighting, but he never allows himself to be overcome by his evil soul. We're going to continue learning later in Tanya in a further class. Thank you. All right, we're going to continue now with the Shia and Tanya. Now the Tanya is going to discuss 5 different types of people, and we're going to explain what they are and what the Tanya is aiming at. As we discussed in the previous class, that the Tanya teaches us that the tzaddik and the rasha, the righteous person and the wicked person, is not someone who does more mitzvahs as a tzaddik, less mitzvahs as a rasha. Of course, that's in many places considered a tzaddik and a rasha, but that's a borrowed term. The real meaning of a tzaddik and a rasha is that the tzaddik takes his evil inclination, either he changes it over, as we're going to see later in the Tanya, to good, that even the evil inclination, all the evil feelings he could use for serving Hashem, or he suppresses it so much that it becomes subservient to him and it doesn't bother him anymore. That's the second level of a tzaddik, the lower level of a tzaddik. Lower than that is the Beinani, someone who's intermediate that still has an evil desire and coming from his animalistic soul. We're soon going to learn what the animalistic soul is, and also his good desires coming from his heavenly soul, that we're going to learn later exactly what that means. And both of them are fighting, but he doesn't actually do a sin. It's just both on the same strength. Then there's a rasha who has some good feelings in him, but most of it is bad feelings. Then there's someone who's completely bad. So let's see how he takes the Gemara and works with it. So we're going to continue learning Tanya. However, the matter will be understood after a preliminary discussion. We find in the Gemara is brought down in 2 places. Once in Brachas 7a and in Rosh Hashanah 16b. It says like this. There's 5 distinct types. There's 5 different types of people. One is a righteous man who prospers, known as a tzaddik v'tovloi. One is a righteous man who suffers, a tzaddik v'ra'aloi. One is a wicked man who prospers, that's a rasha v'tovloi. A wicked man who suffers, a rasha v'ra'aloi. An intermediate one, a beinani. We just explained the 5 levels. It is there explained that the righteous man who prospers, the tzaddik v'tovloi, is a perfect tzaddik. He's a tzaddik gomer. The righteous man who suffers is the imperfect tzaddik. He's a tzaddik v'ra'aloi. That's in the Zohar Parshas Mishputim. It is explained that the righteous man who suffers, what does it mean a righteous man who suffers? Is one whose evil nature is subservient to his good nature. Meaning he's not yet on the level where he turned over his evil nature, that's called ishapche, turning over that it should work for him to serve Hashem together with his evil nature, that's called serving Hashem with both desires, the evil and the good. But he crushed his evil desires, so he didn't turn it over. It's iskafia. He bent it over. It is explained that the righteous man who suffered is one whose evil nature is subservient to his good nature, and so on. In the Gemara end of chapter 9, Brachas, it stated that the righteous are motivated by their good nature, and the wicked by their evil nature. while the intermediate men are motivated by both, and so on. So we're going to, as we explain now, and later we're going to go more in depth what this all means. Then there's a Gemara that the Gemara says, Rabbi declared, I, for example, am a Bainani. Said Abaye to him, Master, you do not make it possible for anyone to live, and so on. In the Gemara, Rosh Hashanah 16b, Abaye, who's the student of Rabbi, said, how could you say you're a Bainani? You're the tzaddik of the generation. If you're an intermediate man, it comes out that everyone is a Rasha. And if everyone is a Rasha, they will all be condemned to immediate death on Rosh Hashanah. So how could you say that you are a Bainani? And in the next class, we're going to learn that the Baal HaTanya is going to say that it can mean deeds, because if you do a bad deed, you're a Rasha. If you do tshuva, you're a tzaddik. So it must mean it's not deeds. It must mean the nature of a person. And we'll discuss that in the next class. Thank you.